Okay, we are doing SAT practice test 6 and non-calculator live solve. Okay. So we've got Salim wants to purchase tickets from a vendor to watch a tennis match. Okay. The vendor charges a one-time service fee for processing the purchase of the ticket. The equation 15 $15, something one play for N tickets. What does a 12 represent? That's okay. So whenever you have this, so this is a fixed amount. It's not going to change. If N increases, your 12 is not going to change. So that's not the price of one ticket. It's actually $15 because if you buy 2 tickets, the money should go up. This is the service fee, yes, because it's a fixed amount. Total amount of dollars, no, that's T, and then no, we don't want total. So okay, first answer B. Okay, any questions on that first one? Because remember, usually you guys want to do these questions quick. All right, yeah. Okay, so first answer. Also, if I do make any mistakes, please point it out. I might make one or two. I might make a mistake or two. And because I'm going fast. A gardener buys 2 kinds of fertilizer. Fertilizer A contains 60% of filling materials by weight. Fertilizer B contains 40%. Okay, together they equal 20% of things. Where X is the number of fertilizer A and Y is the fertilizer B. So usually we want to do 0.6 because that 60% is for A and X is relating to A. So 0.6 times thing plus 0.4. All right. Equals 240. Usually I won't write this out, but I'm just writing it out for you guys. Yeah, it's B. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So every time it's a percent, like 60%, you're gonna have to put like a 0.6.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because basically whenever you want to actually multiply with percents, right? When you want to find like 60% of 100, right? You always multiply by a decimal. Right? So if I have 0, I want to multiply by 0.6 and that's going to give me 60. I can't multiply by 60%, else I'll get like 6,000. So we want to make sure that we multiply by the decimal whenever we're multiplying. Okay. Next question 3. What is the sum of these two numbers? These are basically like variables. You could think of I like X. So that's going to be 6 plus 11. Yes. C. Okay. If you have any questions, just stop me right away. Just say, hey, I don't understand this. Use the chat if you don't have access to your mic. Don't understand. Okay, no problem. So it's complex numbers, like when you're adding complex numbers, it's like adding 2 equations, right? It's like 3 plus X, okay? If you're adding 3 plus X and 4 plus 8X, right? You only add the 8s and you only add the 2s, right? You can't mix them. 11X. So you can't mix these two. And that's the same thing with imaginary numbers. Think of imaginary numbers as kind of like a variable. You can't add an imaginary number to like a real, to like 2. This is like the simplest form it can get. There's no simpler form than that. So when you add these two, think of it like adding variables. I'm not at number 4. I'm at number 3. So when you're doing these 2 equations, you only want to add like terms. So you want to add the 2 and the 4, which gives you a 6. And the 3 and the 8, which gives you 11. It's like adding two variables, like 3 plus X.
But why is it there like a square root -1?
Oh, here they're just giving you the definition of I. Don't mind that. Usually the only reason why you'd want that is when you have an equation and then you've got like something like I squared, right? Okay, here's the most common example when you'd use this small piece of information. Usually you wouldn't use it, but you'd use it like, say, 2 plus, you wanted to multiply 2 plus I, right? And 2 minus I, let's say. So if I was to open this out, I get 4, 2 times this is negative 2I, and I get positive 2I. And then I get I squared minus I squared. So we see that the 2 i's cancel out. And the only reason why so this I squared, right? We know I is the square root of -1. I squared has to be -1, okay? And negative of negative make positive. So this is equal to 5. Because I squared, if we dissect this, I in negative I squared, this is the same thing as saying minus of -1 or is +1. Okay? Did you get that? That's the only reason when we'd use I equals to -1. You'd only use it when you've got powers of I, when I is raised to some power. Otherwise, don't use it. Don't care about that. Okay. So how about number 4? Let's do this. Oh, you all you guys did it ahead of me. In the equation of P and T are okay. So yes, it is going to be 2, and the reason why we know that is because P of T times P of T, right? We're trying to find the value of P. If you multiply those two, we get P squared of X squared, and we know that this has to equal the X squared term because this has the X squared, that has the X squared. So this has to equal the X squared term, right? X squares cancel. P squared equals to 4. Why, please? It's multiplication complex. Could you try to rephrase that? I don't really understand your question. So yeah, here P equals to plus or minus 2. In this case, we have no -2. We have a +2 right there. So that's one way. That's a way you want to do it. You want to multiply and then see. So you see X squared here, and you want to equate it to the other X squared term over here. Okay. Okay. For the person who asked the question, please try to elaborate. Why, please? It's multiplication. I don't really understand what you mean. So just elaborate. But yeah, just tell me your question, and the moment you tell me, I'll get back to you. Okay, which of the following is the graph of the equation y equals 2x minus 5 in the xy plane? So whenever we see this -5, right, this is the y-intercept. So the line has to cross at -5, somewhere here. So it can't be A, can't be C. And now we see that it has a positive slope. This is your slope, so it's positive. This, if it goes downwards, that's going to be a negative slope. And if it goes upwards, that's a positive slope, right? So this is going to be the answer. So you want to first check the intercept. This doesn't have an intercept at -5, and this doesn't have an intercept at -5. This has a negative slope, and this is the only one with a positive slope. Okay? If you guys have questions, just stop me. Actually, we'll take a stop at the 5-question break, 5-question mark. Every 5 questions, we'll take a stop. And so I'll ask everyone, do you guys have any questions from 1 through 5? By slope, do you mean gradient? I think gradient and slope are 2 different things. I mean like rise over run. When I mean slope, I mean rise over run. Unless if you call it gradient in like different places, I'm not too sure. What I've learned, gradient is something different that you learn later on. But I'm just saying rise over run. It's like okay, someone raised their hand. Give me a second. Do you have a question for the person who raised your hand?
Please, can you explain question 5 again?
Question 5? Okay, no problem. Okay. So, okay, question 5, I will go over it. Okay, so question 5, we have this equation and we need to graph it, okay? So, where our equation is usually comes in y, oh, I don't like that color. I'm going to move it here. Y equals to 2x, mx plus b. So this is our equation. So our m over here is a slope. So this is slope. B is our y-intercept, okay? So y-intercept is basically where it crosses on the y-axis. For example, this has a y-intercept of 2.5. So this has a y-intercept of 2.5. Okay? So we want a y-intercept of -5, you see? So we have to see where it goes, where on the y-axis it hits -5. This doesn't hit -5, this hits +5, not -5. So you see this here crosses -5, this here crosses -5. Now we have to check our slope. Our slope over here is 2, right? 2 is a positive number. So whenever we have a positive number, our slope goes this way. It goes upwards. Our line goes upwards. If you have a negative slope, our line goes downwards. So over here we have a negative slope, but 2 is positive. So that's not the answer. And over here we have a positive slope. So that's our answer because it goes upwards. Did you get that? Okay, so let's see. We have some other questions in the chat box. In which type of question do we check by putting in the value of x and y? You can do it for this question. It doesn't actually matter. You can do it for any question you want. You could try to plug it in this question and it'll work. If I plugged in like 0 for x, I would get -3, right? And wait a second. No. I messed up. If you plug in 0, you'd get -5. So you could say, oh, y is 0. I mean, x is 0, y is -5, right? You could plug in 1 and you'd get -3. So 1, -3. Okay? So you can plug it in. Wait, I will move on once I just finish answering everyone's question. I want to make sure everyone understands. Okay, question 3. Wait, what? Please. What? Oh, the multiplication was more of an example. In question 3, the multiplication, I just wanted to show you an example when to use the I equals square root of -1. Okay. Okay, let's go to number 6. If you have any more questions, you can ask me. X equals to 2/3 y and y equals 18. What is the value of this? Okay. Okay, so in this case, we just solve for x 2/3, and we know y is 18, so we plug in 18. This will give us 12, right? So x is 12. Plug it in this equation. 2 times 12 is 24. 24 minus 3 is 21. Okay. Did you guys? Okay. If you have any questions, I'm not gonna ask if you guys got that. If you guys have any questions, just type it in the chat. Okay. A bricklayer uses the formula N equals 7LH to measure this. So that's the number of bricks needed to build L feet long, H feet high. Which of the following correctly expresses L in terms of things? So that should be L and 7 by H. All right. So this one is not too bad. You just have to isolate L. And by isolating L, you have to divide both sides by 7H. Okay? So that's what it means. And if you guys have any questions, just type it in the chat. Or raise your hand, I guess. Okay, in the table above shows some values of the functions w and t, for which value of w of x at plus t of x equals x. So basically they're asking for which value of so this plus this, so when will it equal x? So we just need to do trial and error. Right? We don't even need to test 5 because that's not an answer choice. We just need to test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is -4. That does not equal 1. Wrong. This is correct. Just to make sure this is wrong. This is wrong. Okay. So it's going to be B. Oh, shoot. I circled B and C. Yeah, B. And this is going to be B because 3 minus 1 is 2 and 2 equals to 2. Right. Okay. If this equals 64, then what's the value of x? Square root of x is square root of x. Square root of 9 is, oh god, we have 10 minutes. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 8 is, 64 is 8. So square root of x equals to 5. Square both sides, x equals to 25. Just remember, if sometimes you don't get the right answer when you do these square roots, right? Let's say 25 wasn't an answer choice. Remember that when you do a square root, it's a plus or minus, okay? So the square root of 9 is actually more like plus or minus 3. So if you don't get an answer by using the plus condition, usually you want to use the plus condition. That's most of the time it's right. But sometimes they'll try to trick you and use the minus condition. If you do not get the answer using the plus condition, try to use the minus condition. Okay. Jamie is preparing for a bike race. His goal is to bike an average of 280 miles per week for 4 weeks. Okay. So he bicycled 240 miles the first week, 310 and 320, which inequality can be used to represent the number by, okay, so he wants to bike 240 miles in 4 weeks, right? So we want to see the total amount of miles he bikes in total. So in 4 weeks and 280 miles per, 280, not 40 miles per week. C for the top, is that what you're saying? Yeah, C is number 9. I don't believe it's here. Give me a second. Okay. So this is the total number of miles he wants to bike. Total. Now let's look at the answer choices. So over here we're saying, over here we're taking the average of everything and then adding x. That is not really right. That's kind of, this question is kind of tricky and eliminating answers, but let's take out the easy ones. This we know is incorrect. B, it has to be incorrect. Why? Because x times 280 is the total amount of miles, right? And then these obviously do not, these are just the sum of the 3 weeks. So that's obviously incorrect. We have to have the sum of the 4 weeks, then the total miles. So this is the total for the 4 weeks, right? Which shows over here. And these are the total miles run in 4 weeks. Right, so D will actually be the correct answer, and let's check the other ones. Let's see. Why is this wrong? Because we're dividing by 4. Now, remember, if you divide each one by 4, like this is kind of tricky, because here, I think the better way to explain it is multiply everything by 4. Let's say I multiplied both sides by 4, right? If I multiply both sides by 4, I'm going to get 240 plus 310 plus 320 plus 4x greater than or equal to 4 times 280. We already said that 4 times 280 is the total. So this is your total amount, and this is for 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks. So this is right. This is the sum for the 3 weeks. But then suddenly we get 4x. This is 4 times the sum of the last week. We don't want that. We just want an x to have the total amount for 4 weeks. We don't want a random 4x. If you're adding a 4x, that's like adding 3 weeks, then adding the multiplication of 4 times the last week, which doesn't really make sense. So a way to do this is to somehow to make it as simple as possible. So the answer for this one is going to be D. So C is incorrect, and then A is also incorrect. Because if you do the same multiplication technique for this one, we're going to see it's 240 plus 310 plus 320 plus 3x, which again is not what we want. Okay. We don't want that because that doesn't really make sense. We have to, so the answer is D for this one. Okay, Any questions on questions 6 through 10, or technically 1 through 5? So, any questions on 1 through 10? Six, okay. You didn't understand 6. Okay, no problem. Take my pen. Okay, 6, okay. So we have x equals to 2/3 y, okay? And they gave us that y equals 18. So we could substitute 18 instead of y. Okay, I will re-explain that, don't worry. Now, we multiply this, 3, so this is going to be 6. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay? So we know that x equals 12. Now we have, so they're asking what is the value of this equation? What is the value of 2x minus 3? Well, we know what x is. X is 12. Right? So we have 2 times 12 minus 3 equals to 21. What part did you not understand? Over here. Just, I don't understand. Can you go further? Oh, you understand that? Okay, how about the other person who said? Oh, you said 8. You said 8. Okay, 8. 8, then I'll go to 10. Okie dokie. So in this question, they're asking what is Wx? When does this equation hold true? So when does this plus this equal this, right? So if you test each one, right? When they say x is 1, we have to test this one because they're asking for a value of x, right? So if you do -3 plus -1, -1 plus -3, this gives -4. -4 is not equal to 1, so that's incorrect. Same thing here, -3 plus, positive 3 plus -1 gives us 2. This does equal to 2. 2 equals 2, so that's right. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 does not equal 3, so that's wrong. So that's wrong, and that's wrong. And over here, 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 does not equal 4. That's also wrong. Okay? So therefore, our answer has to be 2. Okay. Now 10. 10 was a bit tricky to explain, but I can try. So instead of trying to, I think this question is better if you don't try to eliminate the wrong answers and just try to find the right answer. So we have to understand that he wants to average of at least 280 miles per week for 4 weeks, okay? So this means that if he wants to bike an average of 280 miles per week for 4 weeks, then this will give the total amount of miles. Is that correct? This gives the total amount of miles. Okay? So, yeah. So now this has to equal the amount of miles she bikes, right? So she biked 240 the first week, 240. Then we have to add the total amount of miles she biked. Plus 320. And then last week she bikes X. And this has to be greater. Because they said at least this much. Right? So this is the total amount of miles she has biked in the 4 weeks. Okay? And this is the total amount of miles she's biked in 4 weeks. So these two, so she wants this goal, so we have to basically put this on one side and then put this on the other. Now, obviously, this could be bigger because this is as at least. But this is kind of at least what we want. At least we want 4 times 280, and this is the total amount